Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be looking at a story that you shared with us, and I'm sure it'll touch your heart too. Panaderia El Buen Hogar, Historia. It's such a heartwarming story, and we are going to try to uncover uh, the key moments and insights from this narrative.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The story takes us to this small town where the smell of fresh bread is only the beginning of something much more meaningful.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
The story centers around a beloved local bakery
Yes.
and its owner, Don Ernesto. And today, our mission is to understand what made El Buen Hogar so special
Absolutely.
and what lessons we can glean from its history. So let's start with the heart of this bakery, Don Ernesto. The text describes him in such a beautiful way as not just a baker, but someone who spread love and hope in every loaf.
Right.
What comes to mind when you read that about the impact of such a figure in his community?
Well, it's fascinating how Don Ernesto transcended his craft,
Yeah.
baking bread, something so fundamental. It became for him a way to offer something much deeper.
Yeah.
Human connection, care, optimism. The idea of spreading love and hope suggests that his work went beyond the material. It makes you wonder if this was like a conscious philosophy or just a natural extension of his character.
Right.
Perhaps both are true.
Yeah, and this generosity of Don Ernesto is very particular.
Yes.
The text mentions how he helped those who were hungry regardless of their ability to pay.
That's right.
And that phrase, he would tell them, "Today's your lucky day, someone paid for this for you." When in reality, it was him. What a discreet and beautiful way to help, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't ostentatious charity, but rather a silent and respectful act of kindness. And by not boasting about his help, Don Ernesto preserved the dignity of those who received it.
Yeah.
And this reveals a deep empathy and understanding of human vulnerability.
Huh.
It's interesting to think how small and consistent acts like this can weave invisible bonds in a community.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of that, that saying, see a need, fill a need.
That's right, yeah.
Just he saw, obviously there was a need, and he just filled it quietly and without any expectation of anything in return. And then we have that very touching story of little Sophia and her sick mother.
Yes.
Don Ernesto's immediate reaction in giving her a big bag with bread, milk, and cookies, and those sweet words, "Take it to your mom, little one. Tell her to get well soon."
Yeah,
It's a moment that really touches your heart, don't you think?
without a doubt.
Yeah.
This moment illustrates the immediacy and breadth of his generosity. It wasn't just a symbolic gesture, but practical help that addressed the basic needs of Sophia and her mother in a difficult time.
Yeah.
And the kind words are crucial. They offered comfort in addition to sustenance.
Yeah.
And it makes us reflect on how an empathetic response can alleviate the weight of difficulties.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where maybe, you've had a death in the family or something terrible has happened.
Yeah.
And someone brings you a casserole.
Absolutely.
And it's that thought that counts.
Yep.
But it really does. I mean, you're going through this thing and you're not even thinking about food.
Right.
And someone just brings you food and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, and here's something that you can just heat up and eat so you don't have to think about this right now."
Yeah. And that, like you were saying, that action of thinking about somebody and their need and providing for them, it goes like miles beyond sort of the thing itself.
Absolutely.
It's like you were saying, it's that thought that counts.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And Sophia's response is just as cute.
Yes.
She would go to the bakery to help without asking for anything in return. And Don Ernesto, in turn, would give her, like, a warm bread or a piece of cake. That silent reciprocity, that selfless giving and receiving.
Yeah.
What does this tell us about the relationship that was forming?
But what we see here is the beginning of a cycle of kindness.
Yeah.
Don Ernesto's action inspires in Sophia a desire to contribute. And he recognizes her effort with small details. It's not a transaction, but a human connection that is strengthened through mutual aid. It's as if Don Ernesto was sowing seeds of generosity that would later flourish in unexpected ways.
This is where the story gets even more touching.
Yeah.
The text tells us how Don Ernesto's health begins to deteriorate.
Right.
His hands, once firm and strong, now trembled.
Yeah.
He reaches a point where he thinks about closing the bakery. Imagine the sadness this must have generated in the community that appreciated him so much.
Absolutely. The bakery wasn't simply a business, it was a meeting point, a place associated with human warmth and Don Ernesto's generosity.
Okay.
And its possible closure would mean the loss of much more than just a bread supplier. It was a symbol of stability and affection in the lives of many people.
And I think about that, in our own lives. I'm sure you have favorite places to go.
Of course, yeah.
And if those places were to suddenly disappear, I mean, it really does leave a hole in your heart in a way.
Yeah. I mean, you can think about it in terms of a community center
Yeah.
or, a place of worship or, a park. Any place where people sort of gather and feel some sense of belonging.
Yeah, it's like Cheers.
Absolutely.
Where everybody knows your name. And if that place were suddenly to not be there anymore, I mean, it would leave a void. But what happens the next morning is extraordinary.
Yes.
A crowd gathers in front of the bakery.
Yeah.
Former clients, neighbors, children who are now adults,
Yes.
and they all come with something. Ingredients, flour, smiles. They even baked bread at home. And that decoration, flowers, and the sign. Thank you, Don Ernesto, for feeding our hearts. It's a goosebump moment. Right?
Yeah.
What do you think drove this massive and sort of a bit spontaneous response?
This is the culminating moment of the story where we see the tangible manifestation of the profound impact that Don Ernesto had on his community.
Yeah.
It's the natural and spontaneous response to his generosity over the years. And people not only bring ingredients, but also smiles, highlighting the joy and genuine gratitude they feel. The sign is a powerful statement of the emotional value that Don Ernesto brought to their lives. It's a beautiful example of how kindness can generate a feeling of positive debt that drives community reciprocity.
Yeah. I'm just imagining the look on his face as he's looking out the window at all of this.
Absolutely.
And then Sophia appears, now an adult.
Yeah,
She's become a baker,
that's right.
and she tells him, it's our turn to take care of El Buen Hogar. What a symbolic moment. The passing of the torch. What does this act mean for the future of the bakery and Don Ernesto's legacy?
It's a moment full of meaning.
Yeah.
Sophia, who was once the recipient of Don Ernesto's generosity, now assumes the responsibility of continuing his work.
Yeah.
Her personal and professional growth are intrinsically linked to the influence of the baker.
Yeah.
And it's proof that kindness is contagious and generates a legacy that transcends generations.
Yeah.
Her return symbolizes the continuity of the values of El Buen Hogar.
Don Ernesto, with that lump in his throat,
Yeah.
realizes the impact of his selfless actions. And seeing him sitting in his bakery with a cup of coffee and bread that he did not prepare,
Right.
observing Sophia and the others work with the same love, it's such a powerful image, isn't it? What do you think was going through his mind at that moment?
It must have been a moment of profound realization for Don Ernesto. After a life dedicated to giving, he receives the gift of seeing his spirit replicated in the community. It's the confirmation that his actions had a multiplier effect, creating a culture of care and collaboration. I'm sure he felt great satisfaction seeing that his legacy would continue so naturally and sincerely.
And that internal reflection of Don Ernesto, realizing that true wealth was not in what one had, but in what one gave.
Right.
This is one of the great lessons of this story for you, isn't it?
Definitely. It's the essence of the message.
Yeah.
The story challenges the notion of purely material wealth and redefines it in terms of positive impact on the lives of others. Don Ernesto's true satisfaction comes from his contribution to the well-being of his community. It invites us to reconsider our own priorities and value human connections over possessions.
Yeah, and even after his passing,
Yes.
El Buen Hogar continued to thrive under the leadership of Sophia and others,
Yes.
remaining a refuge for all who needed it.
Yes.
And that final sentence is so powerful because bread runs out, but kindness remains forever. What do you feel is the main lesson we should take from this powerful statement?
This is the moving and enduring conclusion of the story.
Yeah.
Bread as physical food is ephemeral, but acts of kindness leave an indelible mark on hearts and on the social fabric of a community.
Yeah.
Don Ernesto's spirit lives on through every gesture of generosity he inspires. It reminds us that our kind actions have a lasting impact, far beyond what we can imagine in the moment.
So what does this all mean for you, having shared this beautiful story with us? Panaderia El Buen Hogar shows us the profound and lasting impact that simple acts of kindness and generosity can have within a community.
Right.
Like Don Ernesto with his bread, what can you offer, metaphorically or literally, to those around you?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question.
What kind of legacy do you want to build with your daily actions?
This story invites you to reflect on your own interactions and contributions to the community you live in. It asks you the question of whether you are cultivating a Buen Hogar in your own environment, whether through small but meaningful acts of help, empathy, or simply a smile. In what ways can you nurture the spirit of community around you?
And to end, one last reflection to take with you.
Okay.
The story affirms that kindness remains forever. What examples have you witnessed in your own life or community that demonstrate this enduring nature of kindness? Is there a Buen Hogar in your own experience? I invite you to think about it and perhaps share your own bread with the world.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you.